At the mere thought of saying that, I think that's all broken up. That idea is no longer.
BRICS just dropped a bombshell that's sending shockwaves through global trade, banning the U.S. in a bold counterstrike against Trump's jaw-dropping 150% tariffs. And if you thought Trump's trade war antics were over the top, his reaction to this move takes the drama to a whole new level. This escalating showdown between BRICS and America is rewriting the rules of the global economy.
Donald Trump has a new target, the BRICS group of nations. It started off as a club of 4 developing nations: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Over the years, 5 more countries joined: South Africa, Ethiopia, Iran, Egypt, and the UAE.
The BRICS nations, an alliance of powerhouse economies like China, Russia, and several developing countries, have been making waves with their bold agenda.
Wonderful US economy, they can find another sucker.
And what's their agenda? To dethrone the US dollar. The drive to reduce dollar dependency gained serious momentum after the US slapped sanctions on Russia in 2022. With China and Russia leading the charge, the group began promoting trade in local currencies, aiming to rewrite the rules of global finance. It's not just about economics. It's a direct challenge to America's dominance on the world stage.
I don't care, but BRICS was put there for a bad purpose, and most of those people they don't even want to talk about it now. They're afraid to talk about it.
This movement toward de-dollarization is a tectonic shift. For decades, the dollar has been the backbone of global trade, a symbol of stability.
BRICS have accused the U.S. of weaponizing the dollar. They say that America leverages its currency so that rivals must operate within a framework defined by U.S. interests.
But for BRICS, breaking free from that dependency is both a necessity and a statement. The sanctions on Russia exposed just how vulnerable countries are to dollar-based systems controlled by Washington. By pushing local currencies, BRICS is essentially declaring, we won't let the U.S. weaponize its financial power against us anymore.
Well, many economists warn that if Trump does impose a 100% tariff, it would actually fuel inflation in the U.S.
But let's not forget the risks here. If the dollar were to lose its dominance, it wouldn't just shake up the U.S. economy, it would send shockwaves through global markets.
This week, do not try to replace the US dollar. Donald Trump warns BRICS nations. The president-elect threatens 100% tariffs.
Financial systems worldwide, from banking to trade settlements, are deeply tied to the greenback. A world without the dollar at its center would be chaotic, to say the least. And while BRICS claims to have the vision, executing it is a whole other story.
These supply chains that have become so integrated, vertebrated, will have a profound impact on inflation, on the well-being of U.S. households. There's an estimate that these tariffs, if they remain in place for over a month or so, will start costing each U.S. household $830 in extra taxes.
Now, enter Donald Trump, a man known for turning the global chessboard upside down. In a fiery speech to the Republican Governors Association, Trump didn't just criticize BRICS, he issued a full-blown economic threat.
BRICS wants to play games. Those countries won't trade with us. We won't trade with them. And if any trading gets through, it'll be 100% tariff at least.
White House, where President Donald Trump has threatened the BRIC nations with 150% tariffs if they try to undermine the U.S. dollar.
His words were as sharp as ever. Any BRICS state that even mentions the destruction of the US dollar will be charged a 150% tariff.
Washington needs a commitment that these countries would neither create a BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the dollar.
This wasn't just posturing, it was a high-stakes move aimed at forcing BRICS to back off. And then came the kicker. We don't want your goods, Trump added, dismissing BRICS exports with a wave of bravado. The 150% tariff wasn't just a policy suggestion, but a loaded weapon aimed directly at the heart of BRICS' economies.
Because I told them if they want to play games with the dollar, then they're going to be hit with a 100% tariff.
The strategy was clear. Trump wanted to make the cost of challenging the dollar unbearably high. And to some extent, it worked, at least on the surface. Trump confidently claimed, "We haven't heard from the BRICS states lately." Was this silence a sign of surrender or simply a strategic pause? While the president might have declared victory, the alliance hasn't completely abandoned its de-dollarization dreams.
You know what a BRICS nation is? Well, you'll figure it out. But, and if the BRICS nations want to do that, that's okay, but we're going to put at least a 100% tariff on the business they do with the United States. You know what the BRICS is, right?
What's undeniable is how Trump's unpredictability has reshaped global trade strategies. The BRICS nations, particularly developing countries reliant on exports, now know the consequences of stepping out of line with Washington's agenda. A 150% tariff isn't just a number, it's a dagger aimed at their economic lifeblood. For countries heavily dependent on exports to the US, the threat alone is enough to reconsider bold moves against the dollar.
The global currency battle is heating up. The current U.S. President Donald Trump has warned BRICS nations against creating a new reserve currency.
But here's the twist. Trump's tariff threat isn't just a weapon. It's also a gamble. Some argue it's a masterstroke of economic diplomacy, forcing rivals to play by America's rules. Others see it as a potential time bomb, one that could backfire if BRICS doubles down on their plans and finds alternative markets or allies. Either way, the fallout from Trump's tariffs is reshaping global dynamics. With both BRICS and the US NAVIG calculated, every silence loaded with intent. Sure, Trump's tariff threats rattle some cages, especially in a volatile new era.
The day they mention that they want to do it, and they will come back and say, we beg you not to do this. BRICS is dead since I mentioned that.
Did Trump really silence BRICS with his 150% tariff mic drop? Or is this just the calm before the storm? According to Trump, he's got the upper hand. In his words, "We haven't heard from the BRICS states lately." That's quite the claim, and it paints a picture of the alliance retreating in the face of his fiery ultimatum. But is this silence defeat or strategy? Behind closed doors, BRICS isn't exactly twiddling its thumbs. While the alliance might not be shouting from the rooftops, don't mistake the quiet for surrender. Think of it more like a chess game. Every move is in developing nations that heavily rely on US trade. For them, the stakes are high. A 150% tariff isn't just a policy, it's an existential crisis. Entire economies could spiral if their exports get hit with that kind of penalty.
Sailed. Now that would be a terrible thing for our country. It would be bad for the world. They wanted to undermine the dollar. 6 nations got together. They wanted to undermine the dollar.
So, what's BRICS up to? Well, let's just say they're not exactly packing up and going home. Quiet diplomacy seems to be the name of the game right now. That doesn't mean BRICS has abandoned its de-dollarization dreams. It just means the alliance might be playing it smart, regrouping, and waiting for the right moment to strike back. Behind the scenes, there's likely a lot of plotting, strategizing, and maybe a little venting about Trump's unpredictability.
Well, we can help it. So when I came in, the first thing I said is any BRIC state that even mentions the destruction of the dollar will be charged a 150% tariff.
For developing nations within BRICS, Trump's 150% tariff threat created a tricky tightrope. Compliance might keep the trade doors open, but at what cost to their sovereignty and long-term goals? On the flip side, resistance could mean economic chaos. Some countries have taken the cautious route, complying just enough to avoid immediate fallout. Others, like China and Russia, are less inclined to bow down. They've been here before, and they know how to play the long game.
The US went ahead with its promise of 10% tariffs on all Chinese goods headed to the US.
And speaking of playing games, let's dive into the roller coaster that is the US-China trade war. It's not just a war of words. It's a high-stakes economic showdown that's kept the world on edge. Before dropping his infamous 150% tariff bomb on BRICS, Trump was already making waves.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
Remember when he hit China with a 10% tariff on goods? Or when he turned up the heat with a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada? These weren't just policy tweaks, they were shockwaves. And his message was just, America first means America will do what it takes, even if it means going solo.
We are firmly opposed to this unwarranted increase, and we do believe that this is in violation of the WTO rules. So that's why China is filing a complaint.
But here's the thing about poking a giant like China. They don't back down. Instead, they retaliate. In true tit-for-tat fashion, China clapped back with its own tariffs on U.S. goods. What started as an economic flex quickly spiraled into an all-out trade war. It was no longer just about balancing trade deficits. It became a battle for global dominance, and the markets feel it. Businesses worldwide went from cautious optimism to full-blown panic. Global supply chains, already fragile, began to buckle under the weight of uncertainty. Companies that depended on smooth trade between the US and China suddenly found themselves in the crossfire, scrambling to navigate the chaos. For multinationals, it wasn't just a trade war. It was a survival test.
But since the announcement of new tariffs in the US and China, the markets are now muted. On Wall Street, heavy losses were clawed back on Monday as the news broke that 25% tariffs on Mexico are to be delayed for a month.
This wasn't just a US-China problem, though. When the two largest economies in the world lock horns, the entire planet feels the aftershocks. Markets across Asia, Europe, and even Africa couldn't escape the volatility. One tariff announcement could send stocks tumbling, while a mere hint of a truce might cause an equally dramatic rebound. It was like watching a global financial yo-yo, with everyone holding their breath for the next move.
I'm afraid for both sides, for my workers, for the workers in the United States, but it's devastating. It'll devastate us, and it'll impact quickly.
For businesses, it was a logistical nightmare. Companies that relied on Chinese manufacturing faced rising costs as tariffs drove up the price of imported goods. At the same time, American exporters struggled to compete as Chinese counter-tariffs made their products more expensive overseas. The result? A lose-lose situation for everyone involved, except maybe the lawyers and consultants raking in fees to help companies navigate the mess.
100% tariff would be the opposite of what President Trump wants to do, which is to make America great. It will cut its growth, it will raise its inflation, it will cause all kinds of socio-political concerns within the United States, never mind within the global economy.
And let's not forget the consumer impact. Those tariffs didn't just hit businesses, they trickled down to everyday people. Prices on everything from electronics to household goods started climbing, squeezing wallets in the US and beyond. Shoppers were essentially caught in the crossfire of a trade war they had no part in starting.
As the BRICS member countries equally idly threatening that they will launch their own.
Meanwhile, the trade war became a political chessboard. Trump framed it as a necessary fight to protect American jobs and industries, painting China as the villain in a tale of economic exploitation. Conversely, China positioned itself as a victim of US aggression, rallying domestic support by stoking nationalist sentiment. The rhetoric wasn't just economic, it was ideological, with both sides digging in for the long haul.
The broader the tariffs, the worse it's going to be for the world economy.
As the trade war dragged on, other countries couldn't just sit on the sidelines. Nations with strong economic ties to both the US and China were forced to make tough choices, recalibrating their trade strategies to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. Some sought to diversify their partnerships, while others doubled down on regional trade agreements to hedge against the uncertainty.
Absolutely, it's both sides of the Atlantic, so to speak. They are doing brinkmanship, and there's a lot of political noise without paying attention to the technical requirement of carrying out.
But here's the kicker. Despite all the drama, the US dollar remained rock solid. Even as markets wavered and supply chains wobbled, the greenback stood tall as the world's safe haven. Investors, rattled by the chaos, flocked to the dollar as a hedge against uncertainty. It was a paradox. While Trump's tariffs shook the global economy, they inadvertently reinforced the very currency BRICS was trying to escape from.
Tell them 150% tariff, plus we're not going to do business with them, and that includes China.
So where does this leave us? The US-China trade war didn't just expose the fragility of global trade, it highlighted the interdependence of modern economies. No country, no matter how powerful, can truly go it alone without consequences. As for the tariffs, they might have been a short-term flex, but their long-term impact on global trade and geopolitics is still unfolding. One thing's for sure, this isn't the last chapter in the story of US-China rivalry. Far from it.
You know, the BRIC states, there are like 6 of them, and they were trying to destroy our dollar. They were going to say, you know, they wanted to create a new currency. They probably wanted to use the yuan, China. They wanted to use the yuan. And Biden said, well, I haven't heard from the BRIC states lately, but he said that wasn't much we could do about it. There was a lot. It took once, and literally, they said, sir, what about the BRIC states? They're going to take over the dollar, the sanctity of the dollar. They're going to create a new currency to rule the world. I said, no, they're not.
Trump might claim victory over BRICS, but the story is far from over. The silence from the alliance isn't necessarily submission. It could just be a strategic pause. And while the trade wars rage on, with tariffs flying back and forth, the global economic landscape continues to shift. One thing's for sure, whether it's BRICS, tariffs, or the enduring power of the dollar, this saga is one for the history books.
And we don't want your goods, we don't want to partake. And the BRIC states just broke up. I don't know what the hell happened to them. We haven't heard.
So, Trump throws down his 150% tariff gauntlet, and what does BRICS do? Pack up their de-dollarization dream? Not a chance. Sure, it's no cakewalk, but this alliance isn't short on ambition or creativity. The goal? Escape the US dollar's tight grip on global trade. But let's be honest, that's easier said than done.
China and Russia have even floated the idea of a BRICS currency several times, but have never received a consensus on the issue. This is because India, which is a founding member of the BRICS, has repeatedly said it has good relations with the United States and has no interest in replacing the dollar.
Internally, BRICS has some hurdles to jump over. Think about it. You've got 9 nations, each with its own agenda, economic realities, and political quirks. Herding them into one cohesive strategy is like trying to wrangle cats, determined, geopolitically charged cats. And yet they're pushing forward, exploring alternative payment options like local currency trade, or even creating entirely new financial frameworks.
I think that's all broken up. That idea has no longer sailed. Now, that would be a terrible thing for our country. It would be bad for the world.
But let's not sugarcoat it. De-dollarization is no walk in the park. The dollar's dominance isn't just about economic clout, it's woven into the fabric of global finance. Changing that? It's like trying to move a mountain with a teaspoon. Trump's tariffs may have lit a fire under BRICS, but turning that spark into a full-fledged blaze will take time, effort, and a whole lot of political maneuvering.
Undermine the dollar. 6 nations got together. They want to undermine the dollar.
Now, only Brazil has in fact threatened to hit the United States with retaliatory tariffs.
Trump's tariffs might look like a power move, but here's the thing. Those economic punches don't just land on BRICS, they hit the US too. Let's break it down. These tariffs are nothing short of brutal for BRICS nations heavily reliant on trade. Entire economies could face crippling consequences. That's not just a loss of revenue, it's a loss of jobs, growth, and stability.
I'm afraid for both sides, for my workers, for the workers in the United States, but it's devastating. It'll devastate us.
But here's the twist. While BRICS nations bear the brunt, American consumers and businesses aren't exactly getting off scot-free. Tariffs drive up the cost of imports, which means higher prices for everything from electronics to everyday essentials. And guess who's footing the bill? That's right, average Americans. It doesn't stop there. Businesses in the US also feel the squeeze. Higher costs for imported materials translate to lower profits, and, in some cases, layoffs. It's the kind of economic domino effect no one really wants to see.
The BRICS nations, I think that's breaking up very rapidly. We said that if they're going to go and do anything to undermine the dollar, that includes China. I don't even know that they're a member of BRICS, but they had a few nations get together to try and play cute. And I said, we're going to put 100% tariff on every one of those nations.
And here's the kicker. Trump's aggressive policies might not even achieve their long-term goals. Sure, the tariffs send a strong message, but at what cost? The risk of alienating trading partners, triggering economic retaliation, and undermining global confidence in the U.S. economy is very real.
Regained the respect that we should have, but we've also done things to deserve it. I mean, we've freed up our country, and you're going to see this is basically energy dominance. And
for all the buzz about BRICS ditching the U.S. dollar, let's face it, the greenback is still sitting pretty on its global throne. So, why hasn't BRICS succeeded in pulling the rug out from under the dollar? Simple. Trust. The U.S. dollar has decades of credibility backing it up. BRICS nations? Not so much. Between political instability, economic turbulence, and wildly differing systems of governance, they're struggling to present a united front. It's like asking people to trade their rock-solid car for one that's still in the prototype stage. It's risky, and no one wants to be the guinea pig.
No, that would be a terrible thing for our country. It would be bad for the world. They wanted to undermine the dollar. 6 nations got together. They wanted to undermine the dollar.
But let's not forget the psychology behind the dollar's dominance. When the world feels shaky, investors flock to what they trust most. And right now, that's still the dollar. It's the financial equivalent of that friend who always has a plan B. Reliable, steady, and just what you need when things go south.
Often what we see with Donald Trump is that he does this as an opening salvo to try and put in place better trade agreements.
And then there's Trump. His tariffs might have been a bold chess move, but they're not a magic wand. They can't single-handedly cement the dollar's dominance forever. Sure, they make life harder for BRICS, but the global economy is a dynamic beast. The dollar's supremacy isn't a guarantee. It's a battle that needs to be fought and won every day. So, what's next in this epic showdown? BRICS isn't exactly waving a white flag, and the US isn't about to loosen its grip. The question is, how far will BRICS go in their quest to challenge America's financial dominance?
China and Russia have even floated the idea of a BRICS currency several times, but have never received a consensus on the issue.
China and Russia are leading the charge, doubling down on de-dollarization with an intensity that's impossible to ignore. They're not just playing defense, they're actively reshaping global finance. Whether it's trade deals in local currencies or new banking systems to bypass the dollar entirely, these moves are big. And let's not forget, they've got the numbers on their side. 9 countries, billions of people, and a lot of untapped potential. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to get more information on this topic.